Hello, Julian.
Oh my God,
How
wow.
we doing?
So we finally got it together.
We,
Everyone is so like one person flying to Los Angeles, the other person working on a private thing we don't want to talk about. But we still managed to be able to get together. And as always, there's an infinite number of topics for startup founders to discuss. And
yes.
yeah, please go ahead. I know
So
you
I,
have some
I
stuff
got
on your mind.
so yeah, and also for our valued listeners,
Hmm.
especially the subscribers that listen
Hmm.
to us on a weekly basis, we wanted to keep the cadence going. So instead of having three, or
Hmm.
we've tried the three and a guest, four and a guest.
Yeah.
We've tried four of us, and
Hmm.
now we're trying two. We want to kind of keep the cadence going,
Hmm.
keep the learnings coming, and so that's why it's just me and Julian today that could do
Yeah.
this. And we may scrap the episode because it's not good enough, but hopefully it makes it on. But I wanted to actually start off with
Hmm.
that maybe a topic that you can't relate to a ton, Julian, but
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
I think that San Francisco is back.
My God.
I know. The only reason I say that is because like I'm looking at my calendar and like I'm in the city.
Hmm.
So I moved out to the East Bay.
Hmm.
We moved to Orinda, was a nice little suburb right outside
Yep.
the city. And we have an office in Oakland, and I never thought I'd leave SF because it was
Hmm.
just so awesome. But through the pandemic, it was like there was no real reason to stay. And so we moved out. And I just haven't been getting a lot of meetings. We had an office there for
Hmm.
even during the pandemic, nobody's had meetings. And I just happened to be there 3 times this week. I had at least, I think, yesterday, 2 VC meetings in South
Hmm.
Park in person,
Wow.
which
Yeah.
that's a pretty big thing. Um,
I'm in San Francisco next week. I forgot to tell you, and if you want, we'll hang out. Don't say no
we
on the
should.
podcast. That would be embarrassing.
No, we
Uh,
should. We absolutely should. But
I,
I think that the vibrancy I don't mean to just say San Francisco.
mhm.
I hope that this means like of like tech in general in
It's
like
also summer, right? With summer coming up,
sure.
and summer in any city will start definitely in Canada, obviously, but in summer in any city will drive people out, and all of a sudden it'll feel exciting, and people will be like new restaurants. Let's go out,
No,
you
San
know.
Francisco is not the same way. It's because it's usually mostly it's the same
Hmm.
kind of weather all year round. And
Hmm.
so you don't I know because I lived in Montreal for a period, and I
Hmm.
remember that going from like winter to the first day of spring, and everybody is basically like
In
in
shorts.
their like
Yeah.
shorts
Hmm.
and everything. You don't get that here. So
Hmm.
it's definitely a different feeling. And so what I hope that signaling is like kind of a return to like just the energy is feeling good in San Francisco, which I hope
Yep.
equates to the general tech kind of ecosystem, which we definitely have been in a bit of a slump, and we're in the
I
middle
will
of May right now.
here's my feeling though is definitely, for example, I'm doing investor meetings while I'm there. I'm not fundraising right now, but it's always good to do a few meetings and develop relationships and so on. And and I will say that the raising of a $10 million round like I did in 2021, maybe it's different. We're different. We're kind of a different type of founder. We could develop more relationships and kind of our reputation precedes us a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think that the likelihood of a $10 million round, maybe 20 million, obviously the higher, the more complex, all remote is that doesn't feel like it's going to happen again to me. Unless the deal is shit hot, at which point anything can happen, right?
Yeah.
Like that AI deal that they just recently on the information talked about, they were going to do it at 350, and the guy just took
The seed.
invitations to invest via Typeform. And and his question, I watched the video. His question was,
What's your entity name
yeah,
and I'll send you my wiring instructions.
what's your most what's the highest price you would be willingly
Oh
you
my
would reasonably
god.
pay? And he got investors up to a $1 billion valuation. I'll send you the deck. It's crazy. So other than situations like that, I think that relationships develop in person. Never mind the fact, like Andrew and I have known each other for years,
Yeah,
so
Andrew
us doing
Chen
it
from
remote, yeah,
A16Z. Yeah.
yeah. So you could see how it would happen remotely there, but the way that that people develop relationships, especially if they're going to be on boards together, is meet space, man. And I don't think that's going away, right? This was actually Andy Berman, who's not on the podcast today, but typically ends in the panel, was like, yeah, I go out and meet more people. And this investor, because you used to be a VC, and that investor are kind of, they know you and they like you, go meet them. And so this is new for me. I did it in LA
Yeah.
recently, and I'm going to keep doing it. I'm just going to go kind of city to city to city. But to me, the people that get to me
Yeah.
are those that are like, office is back, baby. If you're not doing office, you're not serious. And first of all, that deeply upsets me
Yeah.
personally.
You're a remote you. We're opposites.
Yeah. But you know that I think you can acknowledge that all different kinds of companies can be built different ways, right?
Yeah. There's, of course.
Like
Yeah.
Ottawa is the great example. Shopify was built in Ottawa. Toby Litke refers to it famously as like the Galapagos Islands, as
Yeah.
in it's an ecosystem that I believe Darwin was able to look at and see that evolution was happening
Yeah.
just in the set of islands, right?
Yeah.
And Zapier happened remote from, I think, not Wisconsin, but like Mississippi or something, right? These remote companies are weird companies. So companies can be built anywhere. And I get that people want to go back to the office and experience the vibrancy of the office.
Right.
But anyway, I'm happy that the pandemic happened because it allows different types of companies to thrive.
Don't
Despite
say
the fact that millions of people died.
Oh my God. For your own personal gain.
Please don't email me. By the way, the hate mail has begun because, for example,
It has. Yeah.
it has. People are like, it's not real PTSD. Startup PTSD is not real PTSD. You know who you are. And I appreciate you listening.
We do. We do.
We know
appreciate
that startup
we
PTSD is
we watch
not
your comments.
real PTSD.
Yeah.
But I think you've spoken openly, and I think I did too, about anxiety and panic attacks and these other things that startup founders develop as a result of pulling companies from the brink of death over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Right.
But and also the opposite. So Andy Dunn from Bonobos actually just came out with a book,
Burn Rate.
Burn Rate. So really great read, and it was all about. I actually just went to listen to him yesterday at a VC's office, talk about his book. He's on a promo tour, and that entrepreneurs are like, it was like 2 or 3 times more likely to have mental health issues. So either going into them. So Andy has I think
bipolar,
it's type 1, type 2 bipolar.
Yep.
But everything from anxiety, panic disorders, that's what I have.
Yep.
And still deal with. And that's a result of startup. Not I didn't come in with that. And a lot of other people come in and are an entrepreneur because they are like a certain way. Like you look at, so he brought up some great examples, like Kanye, right? Like, is he the creative genius because he has, I don't know if he's been diagnosed, but I think the kind of word on the street is he's bipolar, and you have these episodes where you could be super creative and all that. So is he successful because of it, or I don't think it actually turned him into that. But anyways, it was a really great read as far as like mental health and like founders and how like Andy kind of weaved his way through that. He was in jail. He did a lot. Yeah, it's a crazy book.
It is a crazy story. I read the book, I want to say last September, October or something. Yeah. And he's on a press tour for it now. And Andy, just for context for listeners, he started Bonobos, which at the time, not today, by today's startup standards. So first of all, startups aren't pants companies anymore. But during the phase where startups could be pants companies, Andy Dunn raised venture capital for Bonobos and kind of like did a new, like a D2C pants company, and it was super successful and people loved it, and it was hot in New York and so on.
Just do Warby Parker and Casper.
Yeah, like a Warby Parker, but even less tech, because the Warby Parker, at least you could try on the glasses digitally with the app or something, right? But nonetheless, it was fast growing. And while that is happening, he is simultaneously he gets put in jail, and he like there's places in the book where he talks about attacking people in the street. I
Yeah.
feel weird saying this, almost like I'm accusing him of something, but he
No, he
says it in the
yeah,
book,
he does.
right? And he's so incredibly open. My version of this that I used to feel a lot of worry about, because I have epilepsy and I've had
Mhm.
seizures extremely infrequently
Oh, really?
since I was 16. And 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 so that I remember feeling like I had a secret life
Right,
then.
right,
And the result is I've always been medicated, but I get medicated so I won't have seizures, right?
right,
And
right,
so I don't know that that creates mood stabilization exactly, but what
right.
it does create is it forces me to sleep a lot.
Yeah, same thing with Andy, actually.
Oh, right. It's true. He talked about that, how
Yeah,
sleep was a stabilizer in the book. And
yeah,
for me, if I don't sleep 8 hours a night, first of all, I immediately start to I lose my ability to concentrate and I lose my ability to do any meaningful work. And I feel terrible even at 7 hours.
right.
And so it's there's this book, The Gift of Injury.
Yeah.
And it is a book about very hardcore power lifters and after how they break their spine from lifting 1,000 pounds
Mhm.
from bad form. They try to get back into the sport. And the reason it's called the gift of injury is because once you discover that you're injured from bad motion patterns, you make your motion patterns perfect the
Right,
second time
right,
around.
right.
And so the fact that he has this weakness from the perspective of he can't sleep 4 hours, same thing for me, the quote unquote weakness of not being able to sleep for 4 hours. The result is actually your foundation is stronger because
Right.
you can't cut corners, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. Actually, let's go this way. So this is actually one of the questions that he got asked in the book. So when he was going through all the phases of bipolar, so there's manic and all of I can't even remember all of the different phases. I'm not
Hmm.
going to pretend to be an expert, but basically there's the one phase that like you just don't sleep at all, and you're just like you think you're
Right.
basically God.
Yeah.
And then there was a question in the audience that was asked is that VCs, especially your first time through,
Hmm.
they kind of, or even just in the startup land in general, right? YC kind of beats this into you too. It's like you should be working and like working 18-hour days and be like eating like nothing and spending nothing and just working on your startup.
Hmm.
And then like second time founders or third time or whatever, they kind of they understand the value of sleep and all of these different things.
Yeah.
And there seems to be like a sea change, maybe even for like first time entrepreneurs. You see a
Hmm.
lot of people that are like on Twitter now, it's like, what is your sleep score
Yeah.
on the 8 sleep mattress or like all these things. And it's kind of now we're like exercise and like taking care of yourself
Hmm.
is rewarded. And he related it a lot to, like, being a professional athlete, right?
Yes.
If you are in the NBA, like, you have to get your sleep. That's just part of your job.
Hmm.
You can't not do those things. You have
Hmm.
to go exercise. You have to do all those things. And also, if you're a founder, you have to do the same things. Like,
Yes.
you can't sleep for 4 hours. It's
Me.
gonna catch up to you. You can't think critically, all those things. What are your thoughts on where the startup ecosystem started and,
Hmm.
like, maybe where it has came to today and maybe how it's changed as a second time founder?
Yeah. So that it's a really interesting question. And I will say that in the early days of YC, which is before it was big, and when there were like 20 companies or 10 companies in a cohort, right, including Alexis Ohanian, definitely Paul Graham and others were like, just work as hard as you possibly can. And it's actually in a Paul Graham essay where he explicitly says, your job is to work insanely hard for a short period of time so you can concentrate all of that work that you would do in 40 years into 5 or
Right.
something. And and so the division that I don't think that that advice is wrong, nor do I think that it will necessarily break you, but you have to have a certain level of self-awareness about what your limits are, which maybe if you're 18 years old, you don't actually don't have any, Again,
Right.
when I was 18, I was still sleeping 8 hours a night, so I'm out of the ordinary, and I'm super fine with saying here, almost never drink, almost never do drugs, all these other things as foundational things,
Mhm.
which is I hear different from other founders. So what pre-product market fit, you are on a grind
Yeah.
path to your company dying, right? Just from having no customers. That's just the foundational reality of it.
Default dead.
Default debt. And so get default alive, which means eating ramen, you're living at your parents' house, like whatever other version of that. This is if you decide you want to start a company and if a year down the line you still want to have started your company. Now, you achieve product market fit, whatever variation of it is right for you and that external people seem to agree, right? I've got approaching 1,000 customers at my thing today. They're all paying on a monthly basis. They're happy. They get upsold, et cetera. That's product market fit. So now you're on a 10-year path, not a 1 or 2 year path.
Right.
And this is when the
Yeah, that's a good way
slope
of
of
looking
the
at it.
curve
Yeah.
changes.
Yeah.
The slope of the curve goes from run super fast in order to not die. And now you're like, oh, I have to keep going. And, so for example, I take like executive coaching discovery calls. People call me sometimes and they're like, hey,
Yeah.
can you be my coach, et cetera? And I work with about 5 founders at once.
Right.
And they sometimes will ask, am I too early?
Yeah.
And specifically post product market fit, that's when I've gotta be my best version of myself.
Mhm.
Pre product market fit, you could be the worst version of yourself if you want, so long as it's working. Kind of, right?
Well, depends what that means. I hope that means you're putting all your time into your business.
Yes, I mean,
And yeah.
you're eating terribly. You're probably gaining weight, right? You sit, and this is especially true if you are the person that's writing code, the ideal startup founder that is both kind of a good salesperson and also able to write code
Yeah.
and finding customers. So I think people just develop. They look at the Elon Musk and Keith Rabois is always giving this advice. You just got to work harder. Yes, you do have to work hard. It's true.
You
It
do.
is harder than a job. Yes, right. But that being said, don't kill yourself for this. Stay, stay on the path that gets you to the other side, so long as it's growing. I guess.
Yeah.
I guess I should. That's actually. It's not even pre or post product market fit. Is it growing fast or is it not growing fast?
Right.
If it's growing
Yeah.
fast, yeah,
Right.
good.
Yeah, I would say because there are gonna be different things that happen to your company that, like, maybe you thought you had. I'll use my example from Shyp. I thought I had product market fit,
Mhm.
and I definitely did relax. Like, I got an assistant, like, I got a COO. I was, like, definitely not working as hard as I was when I was, like, coding and,
Yeah,
like, doing pickups and, like, packaging boxes and, like, all that stuff
yeah,
to get to, like, where we could scale. But then the company all of a sudden it's like, we don't have it anymore. So it's then you got to go back into the
that's it.
mode of grinding. And so sometimes you kind of it's if you don't have super strong, and which is why it's even just the idea of product market fit is you have it or you don't.
Yeah,
It kind of changes because also like
mhm,
the industry evolves. You have competitors that come
yep,
up, and
mhm,
so it's not like you just need to like it's a 1 or a 0 and it just stays on like that.
yep,
It's like you need to continuously be developing and improving your product and pleasing your customers and doing all those things.
mhm,
And then I'd say that taking care of yourself when it makes the most sense. Like
mhm,
when you say gaining weight and stuff like that, yeah, yeah. When you are super stressed out, like you're gonna have to have something to like maybe take
yes,
the edge off. And I would say that probably drugs are the worst thing you could do. Alcohol would probably be the second worst, and eating would
right.
probably be like the least worst, I guess, maybe.
There's gambling, don't forget gambling, you could al
I don't know how gambling fits into any of that, but yeah, it's definitely not like a 1 or a 0, but you definitely do as for me, I've realized that how important like sleep is. Like
Okay.
sleep is a superpower. It
Is
truly
this
is.
is
Sleep
this
and
your
exercise.
is this a recent realization?
Yeah. After I started getting a lot of anxiety panic attacks. I started realizing that I'm not the same. I'm getting older. I'm
Yep.
approaching 40,
Mhm.
and you just exercise is not it's not anymore to look good. It's like to keep your mental sanity.
Right.
And same thing with eating well as well.
Mhm.
But sometimes you do go, you're a super stressed out mode and you're just eating like shit. And like, I've definitely went through that in the last like year, like bouts and like a couple of Shake Shacks a week or something like that, which you may not even know what the hell I'm talking about, but it's a burger company.
Yeah. Mhm.
But I think that there definitely has been a sea change in founders giving them all, and from a number of different ways. I think that more funding
Mhm.
actually has forced founders to be less scrappy. So
Yep.
before, when you saw like the Airbnb rounds of what did they raise? It was like
600K.
600K in their seed
I
round,
love
right?
it.
Yeah, they didn't have a choice. Like, everybody had to do something.
Yeah.
There was no employees they could have.
Mhm.
Where now, even somebody going to YC, even say if they're in the top 10%,
Mhm.
they're going to be able to raise 5 million bucks, and
For
like
sure.
they could raise a team around them that
Mhm.
they really don't actually need to do any of the real work.
Yeah.
They could actually not be in it on any customer calls and all of that. And so I think it definitely that has changed, but also I think the realization of I don't want to say VCs because I think VCs just want you to work hard
Yeah.
all the time, no matter what. But I think that more founders have talked to other founders and are like, no, you kind of you need to like have a good balance.
Mhm.
In you still got to work. Don't get me wrong, like 15-hour days, like on like at least Monday through Friday,
You're gonna have to
16
work
hour
hard.
days.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but you don't have to do 18-hour days, like 7 days a week, like was probably previous thought. So I think there definitely has been a sea change in the way that people think,
The lack of cash is gonna force a bunch of companies to die. I read a quote
which is good.
recently, I think it was from Benchmark, or sorry, Bill Gurley, who is no longer at Benchmark in investing capacity, but who was for the, I think, the first 10 funds and is not anymore. And he said, "Good judgment comes from experience. Experience comes from bad judgment." And
Totally.
so the if I think back to previous companies and previous things that I did, I can think back to my own mistakes, even when things went in the right direction, and be like, wow, what a stupid decision that was. That hire at that time, God, what a mess. And too much funding and wasting that funding is
Yeah.
it, it, it it is applicable to me because I raised a lot of money
Right.
and some of it was wasted. But it's also there's a bunch of people right now that are thinking I'm gonna be fine. And their companies will die and they'll be like, "Oh shit, well, I guess that was me." And they'll start over fresh and they'll be able to make the decisions the right way the second time. It like the path is unavoidable. That's the thing. Like
Hmm. Hmm.
it's you can listen to these podcasts and it's ironic because I've got this book that I republished recently and I did some sort of media things for.
What is it called?
The book is called Flinch, and
Hmm.
it was first published in 2011, edited by Seth Godin, and it was put on Kindle as one of the only perpetually free books that you could have on Kindle, period. So
Very
hundreds of
cool.
thousands of people have read it, and a lot of people really liked it. Some people also hated it. That's what happens when you write books. But
Or have
the
podcasts.
or have podcasts. But the result is lots of people really, really liked it and wanted a print edition, and we did a print edition, and that's basically what I did it for. And now, at the time when I wrote the book, I was like, hard work is inevitable, was my thought then, and you have to make hard decisions, and there is no way around the tough work. And so there's no amount of podcasts that are gonna solve your problems until you viscerally experience
It's
the
true.
mistake. Oh shit. That mistake, this when I thought I had product market fit was so wrong. I brought the company in a completely wrong direction. There's any set of them. And you can listen to a huge number of podcasts, but you can't avoid the learning without really feeling it viscerally.
Yeah, the big changes in your life, I totally agree. That's why I'm, like, personally glad that I went through feeling like I was such a rock star in my last company to going down to nothing, and I'm thankful for that, and hopefully that that will never happen to me again.
Mhm.
But the learnings you have from that, you can't learn from reading a book or listening to a podcast. But I do think listening that growing up now, like in the tech industry, especially as a founder, I think listening to these podcasts, there's so many of them, which I think is great.
Mhm.
There's so many niche ones that are great. That can be industry specific, which is great.
Yep.
You can learn so much. You have such a big step up on like where when we started. You started even earlier than I did. Like where we did when there was no knowledge that was ever shared at all. Like you'd have to read books and they were not even based on your own industry or technology or
Right.
anything like
You
that.
had 5 startup books at that
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And they were all very general. And now you have like very specific things.
Mhm.
And now it's like you could listen to a podcast when I
Mhm.
think the one guy that was tweeting, what was he was like sanding his floor or something like that. I don't know if you saw the tweet that he was like, he was commenting on one of our podcasts. He was listening to all of our podcasts
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
and
Yeah.
he was
Mhm.
sanding his
Mhm.
floor. And it's that's actually a great use of time because
Yeah.
you're actually learning while you're doing something
It's
that you
actually,
just
yeah.
have to
It
do.
Yeah, that is, and I al speaking of types of learning, one of the things you figure out is you have to absorb different information in different modes and different times of your day. So, for example, some people are night owls. I'm not. I lose productivity
Same, me too.
in before the sun goes down, and typically. And so, there's a few hours in the day where I'll be maybe I'll need to make a meal or I'll need to be away. Maybe I'm driving, running an errand. And so that becomes my podcast time or my audiobook time. And so I've completely changed modes from you need to just push through to find an easy way for you, whatever your mode is.
Yeah,
And if you figure that out,
yeah,
right, then that's when you can be like, oh, actually, I didn't need to. It's the same version of the feedback where people say, don't work on your weaknesses and making them better, just working on making your strengths
the
even
strength's
better than they
better.
are.
Yeah,
Right. And,
yeah,
and so when the 5 million ideally allows you to support the founders so that the strengths can be best utilized,
yeah.
but it's not so much. And 5 million doesn't even seem like that much to me. It is actually because, like you, I raised 2 million in my first
It's a
round at this
it's a
company.
hell of a lot of money.
It's still a lot of
Think
money.
think
Yeah.
of what like that's a lot of money.
Yes. Yeah. We're out of proportion
We
with
are. If
whatever that's what
anybody
the
listens
reality
to
of
us
it. Yeah.
outside of building technology companies is like $5 million.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
And 5 million personally is a lot of money, but in a
Oh
startup,
yeah,
it
no.
doesn't feel like it's you haven't you and I now, I think, feel that we haven't made it until our business is at 25 million ARR or some number in revenue, right? And or until the equivalent where your business has raised 100 million bucks and the unit economics are working and you're in a breakout trajectory.
Yeah.
It's all those things independently can be possible, and you still can not have made it, it turns out.
So I want to switch gears here for a second and turn it on to you. You mentioned that you're coaching 5 founders right now. I'm curious for the listeners if you can kind of boil down, are there any like
Mhm.
common themes that you think that these founders are asking you that you're giving advice on that you could share with other people?
Yeah. So
Um,
that's a good question. I'll say, first of all, coaching is not advice, right?
sorry. Yeah, right.
So
Yes, yes.
what we try
Yeah.
to do as coaches, if you have any level of certification or anything at all, you kind of acknowledge that you cannot have all the answers spending 1 hour of your week in a business that requires the founder to spend 80 hours of their week in the business.
Right.
So you learn to be a really good person that queries the founder about certain things. And that said, I have an unusual combination of things, which is that I'm a coach and I'm a CEO at the same time of a
Right.
company, which
Oh,
is rare.
of a coaching platform
Of a
company.
coach, not any, yeah. Now it's more like a solopreneurship platform, but we started with coaches, yeah.
Oh, right, right, right.
And so I dog food while I built it.
Right, right,
It worked out. And so first is it's almost all first time founders that I coach.
right.
Sorry, it is for all first time founders that I coach. It's almost all first time CEOs. And that means that sometimes they'll just be like, well, what's the best way to build a board deck or what's the best relationship with a board? And I'll have to just tell them, right? Doing a querying mechanism where, you know, traditional coaching would say, well, why do you feel that you
Yeah, why
need
do
to
you feel
prove
that way?
yourself or something? So the answer is almost all the founders that I coach need feedback with fundraising, almost
Yeah,
all of them.
right.
And in almost all of these cases, I have definitely I'll take credit for some of their ability to raise their round successfully.
Okay.
Almost all the time. Because founders do not know how to talk to investors
Mhm,
in almost any situation. Sometimes they're good fundraisers and they're highly networked already. Great.
mhm, mhm.
Sometimes they're not highly networked, but their companies are doing well. And sometimes they're not highly networked and their companies aren't doing well. And so
Same
regardless of
problem.
yeah, but regardless, you have to find a way through to a fundraise,
Right.
right? And so talking to investors turns out to be one person called me a VC whisperer during a recent fundraise. And the reason why is because investors have a very specific way of talking. We haven't spoke about this on the podcast,
Oh.
but maybe you've noted it or maybe you haven't, is that they talk in extreme generalities because in all of their language that they use with CEOs or founders, they always try to be exceptionally non-committal.
Mm,
And so how will this manifest itself? And by the way, sometimes I talk like a VC now because I've spoken to so many of them.
mm.
One thing will be like, instead of saying, well, do you want to invest? They will say, do you like it? And even if it's not even do you like it, but they'll back it out even more to something even more non-committal, which is to say, are you leaning in? And so all
Wait, the
these
investor will say this to the founder, or the founder will
they'll
say
speak
this?
to each other this way,
Okay.
and they will speak to a founder in this way.
Mhm.
And if founders don't know how to talk the way that a VC talks, I think that it does them a certain level of disservice.
Mm.
And this is because there is do you want to invest is either a yes or no to a founder, but do I want to invest as an investor is actually like a 10 or 20 step psychological process for an investor, right? And you know
Right,
this,
right.
right? But and so they have found language to be soft all the time, and if you use hard language on them, then they actually like recoil. And so this is one of the top things, because you asked me, what is one of the top things that I teach
Yeah.
founders on a regular basis? And the answer is in order to maximize the opportunity for fundraising, I not only help them with their board decks and help them with other things, but I also teach them to use this insanely soft language stuff that they do.
So you
Yeah, that
think using soft language on them is better than trying to get a hard answer out
it's
of them?
incredible. It's much more effective. And so what's an example from a recent
So so
fundraise?
so you'd be like, "Are you leaning into this, my
Yeah.
company?"
Yeah, I'll explicitly use language like that, and I'll say to them, I'll say to the founder, "Oh, you just got an email from someone, and they said, yeah, we're the partnership is speaking, and it's been 2 days, and you haven't heard back about the partnership." So they haven't said yes, but they haven't said no either. And I said, okay, very interesting. You also had this interest from this other investor. Then you should email the first investor, but from the partnership, you should say something like, "Momentum is building with my fundraise."
Mhm.
If it is, presuming it's true, I always tell people to say the
Yeah,
truth, of
never
course.
never never say never
But
lie.
and you won't say things are getting hot. No.
Right.
Instead, you say, I have some momentum building here. I can catch you up if you like over a 5-minute call. Let me know what time works for you. And there will be instantaneous. This is one example. I'm making it up as I go. But the CEO will be like, oh my God, they responded instantaneously. What the hell happened? What did you do?
Right.
And the answer is I use the language that VCs use on them, and
Right.
they understand it better than regular people language.
Can we go through a real life example that I actually went through this week?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm, mm,
So tier one VC reached out to me as an inbound. They are a partner.
okay.
They reached out, I think, and also I think to demystify VC, like there's a number of different things that VCs have at their disposal. They could see all their metrics. If you're a consumer company, they see credit card data from all
Yep.
the other people. Same with
Traffic
B2B,
data.
traffic data, all that.
Yeah.
So they kind of see that, and they also they could scan the web and see what different like applications people are
Yep.
using and all of that. And so there's a lot of signals that they could see that, oh, this company's getting traction.
Yep.
So I had a partner reach out to me,
Mhm.
which is unusual that I didn't know from like a tier one firm that I actually know other partners there. But this is somebody that is going deeper in our industry.
Yep.
And this, they reached out. This would be for us a really massive growth round.
Sure.
So it'd be a step above where we're at right now. They brought, so I just met them in person, and they wanted to meet in person, and I'll go through everything. So they scheduled the meeting as a coffee meeting. It
Mhm.
was a very informal, went into one of the offices. They just wanted to kind of hear my story. They knew everything about me, of
Mhm.
course, and the company and all this. And they had a really great like idea of the industry that we're in and where we kind of like play into this. And as I kind of told my story, and I was like, I was like soft pitching it, like
Sure.
of course, like
Of course.
as you
Yeah, the
always,
CEO.
yeah, you always
Mm,
have to. And they were getting more excited and
mm.
excited and excited. And I don't know. I'll stop there
Okay.
and
Yeah.
just analyze what do you think if
Okay.
the level of interest,
Yeah.
what goes through like a VC's head at that time? Why do they reach out? What are
Yeah.
they trying to do? All these different things.
So my first thing that I would do immediately is I would say, are you looking at a deal in my space? That's the first thing that I immediately do, because I assume that there is a legitimate money-making reason why they're reaching out. And I want to check off that they're looking at someone else in my
Interesting.
space right away, immediately.
Okay.
Then the next thing that I would do, by the way, if I'm coaching you through this process, we're just talking through examples. You go through this very exciting meeting. It's with a tier one VC. It's for a growth round. They seem compelled. I would tell you immediately reach out to 5 other investors. And the reason that I would do this is that just my experience of having raised a bunch of rounds and big ones and hard ones and easy ones and small ones
Yeah,
is deals never happen in a vacuum. They
they
happen
don't.
when there is pressure. And I
Of
would
course.
deliberately exert pressure on the deal by talking to other people on purpose.
Right.
And then I would then say, "Hey, thanks for the call. It was a great call. Y'all motivated me to speak out to speak to some other people that I know have been enthusiastic in the past.
Yep.
Let me know if you want to pursue. No big deal." And I would act deliberately disinterested.
Love it. That's great advice.
And so this does this sound this is salesmanship,
Yeah, of
right? And
course.
by the way, everything that I've done is hard won experience to a degree from and actually I would say that the most hard won experience that I have is that I used to treat investors like they were my friends.
Right.
And that's because they are friendly. You always are like they're acting friendly the way that other people act friendly. They
Right.
want to be friends. No, that is not true. They are friendly because it is part of their job description
Yes.
and they want to warm up to you in case you are a great company. They want a shot at your thing, which is reasonable, by the way, and professional and a good idea for them. But founders take so much, put so much effort into their companies. And then when an investor comes calling, this is a good example, you're more experienced than the average.
Yeah.
They'll be like, "Oh my God." And Lord knows I want to be liked. Like one of the reasons I'm a founder is because nobody fucking gives me fucking a shot out in the real world unless I go and I go take it. Right. And so when someone says they like me, I'm like, "Oh my God." But then what founders tend to do is they tend to drop all defenses. And
Right. Right.
they will especially do this if they're first time founders, and especially somewhere around the I have $5 million raised area, because
Right.
they did a seed and their seed was easy, and they think that their Series A will be easy,
No,
and
that's
it
not
is
true.
not.
And Series
Except for
B,
yours, except for yours, Kevin.
mine was
At,
not easy at all.
at Shyp.
At Shyp it was, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. My last company was not at
yeah.
all, even though that I had a track record. But that's besides the point. So, okay, going further into this example. So
Mhm,
this is a little bit of an exception because I know like right now, so again, we're in the middle of May 2023. This would be like a really big growth check.
mhm.
And I know that I also asked, I was like, when's the last check that you guys as a growth fund
Of
wrote?
course. Yes.
And they were like, oh, we wrote a secondary into
Mhm.
extremely hot company. I won't say it was
Yeah.
over the last year. Okay.
Wow.
The chances
Mhm.
of this
Yeah.
deal getting
Mhm.
done
Yeah.
right at this moment
Mhm.
are so slim
Yes.
because
Mhm.
what the people and maybe I'll just tee this up for you, but the people, what entrepreneurs don't realize is that it's not even that one person that makes the decision, it's the whole partnership. So
Everybody needs to love it.
so talk about that. So
Yeah.
my feeling was like, okay, we had one deal, it was a secondary of a super hot company. That's all the whole growth fund is done in like a multi, like
Yeah.
what top like tier VC.
Yeah.
Like my spidey sense is like,
Mhm.
this is not probably going to happen.
Yeah.
Like talk people through how deals actually get done, maybe, or however you want
Yeah,
to
so
go
now
through
I'm like,
this.
now I'm so if I'm the coach in this this portfolio company CEO, now I'm like, okay, we'll just go back to building. Like that, this call is not going anywhere. Deliberately, please do not spend. And people like it is by far the most common thing is people thinking investing is just a factor of being liked in the moment. And just because they like you in the moment, I got a reach out that was very nice from a good fund I heard, and it was a general partner there, and it's a person who is good, right? And they want to meet, no, no, no. But like, how many of these emails are they sending per year? Like
Yeah,
every day? Okay, maybe
right.
every week, you know? And so like you're maybe it's not that it's not authentic. It is authentic. They looked at it and they go, this company is growing, which we are. And they're like, I want to talk to them, and they're enthusiastic. But the average VC is going to do 1 to 2 deals per year.
Yep.
And so
If an entire growth fund
of an
of
entire
like
yeah, that's it.
four
Mhm.
GPs, like they did one deal over the last
To
like
be exceptional when you're not the difference between you and me is you were actually such a hot company that you got just PTSD from being a hot company, and you're like, "I need substance." That was your
yeah,
extreme it's not an overreaction, it's a great reaction.
yeah.
Mine was, everyone ignores me all the time. I'm gonna have to work super hard, nonstop to get every deal, and the
Oh, I
result
know that now.
was
I
yeah.
and that's given the market conditions that we're in, that is definitely, I don't think that I'm the and also the industry that we're in, we're not
Mhm.
the hot company, or like
There are
that's
none. Yeah.
that there are none. But it
Mhm.
was just really interesting to see that. But then here, okay, so here are some other follow-ups. Follow-up was, I shared some top level revenue numbers with
Mhm.
them.
Yeah.
They're like, this is definitely in our range. They started talking valuation right out of the gate,
Okay, yeah.
and also bringing on like next steps, and they want to
Mhm.
get into the actual
Yeah.
process right now. Like, what are your thoughts on
So
all of
I'll
that?
be candid about, like, in a mini format about I've so many ways that I've been seduced the way you're seduced right now. How many of them have led to a term sheet? 0. And so I remember my specific one from my last company was Google, not Google Ventures, sorry, Google Capital.
Yeah.
And so there are 2 funds at Google that most people listening to would know this. One is Google Ventures, they write small
Yes.
checks,
Yes. Go capital. That's
and
big
you have
ones.
Google Capital that writes $500 million checks.
Yes.
And so I was speaking to Google Capital, and I was getting the same song and dance, and, they brought me to the Battery and talked to me and all these things, and we had dinner and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like I discovered that being liked is just not like, their job is to get you to open up to them and
Right.
give as much data unilaterally to them and to no one else. And so anytime that you do that, you are giving them just the ability to say no faster,
Right.
right? And so I would just never again would I ever talk to an investor and open any level of metrics
Huh.
at all until I was talking to 2 or 3 other people at any given time, which is why I run processes now. Like, now I
So
just run a process. I just fill up my calendar and I'm like, "I'm gonna talk to 20 people," you know?
so the reason that I did that is because I knew that we are not raising that round right
Mhm.
now, and I was
Yeah,
just like kind of also we're in like this stalemate. Like these growth funds are not at all writing
sure.
checks, and so I was just kind of curious on are they
And
like
by the
what?
way, Kevin, it may turn out that you were they will do this, and you
Right,
are that hot.
right.
I don't fucking know. I'm your investor, but I'm not on your board, right? I don't know a single thing about it. So or you found the person and they have been like, "You know what? I've been looking to do one of these companies for a long
That's what
time."
it actually was. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're like,
and
I've
they're
been
like,
studying this industry.
yeah.
That's another thing actually for anybody listening
That's Bill
that
Gurley, by the way. That's Bill Gurley going back to it.
that is total, that's
With
benchmark
Uber,
for
that's what
sure.
he was.
Yes,
Right. Yeah.
yes, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of people that so there's yeah, the the VCs, or it could even be a principal, honestly. Like I actually don't like our A got done from a principal that just did a lot of research in our area
Mhm.
and was like, and then brought the partner in, and like then the partner just got up to speed so quickly, and I was so impressed. And like then we did our A, this was at Airhouse. And so like I don't like the idea of founders kind of just not taking meetings with like principals or like non
Yeah.
partners. I really don't like that advice. I think YC gives that advice. I don't
Mhm.
think that that's actually smart, because a lot of the time, like, especially if you're not in like a hot industry,
Mhm.
it really takes some convincing of the whole partnership. So it's got to be like
Mhm.
somebody that's been doing work in this area for the last year. It's like
Mhm.
they've been evaluating all the different companies, because they also know maybe they're a tier two or tier three or whatever, or maybe they're a tier one VC, and they know that
Mhm.
there's going to be some like massive like opportunity like there is in real estate, or like
Sure.
in my industry it's like fulfillment, warehousing. Like why hasn't there been like a technology play on that? And so you'll get somebody that has done a lot of research that maybe not be the deciding partner, but they're actually able to be really excited and then get the partners,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
they have the buy-in from the partners and then get them really excited. And I think that it is not the right thing to do, not to take some of those meetings. And that's what I kind of got from the meeting that I had. And the reason that I'm just like being super open and honest, because I think like real world examples are like really
Mhm.
interesting. To be clear, we're not raising. This would be like a way over extension. Like I'd be doing the
Yeah.
same thing if I fucking did it Ship again. I'd be raising it like
Just be
the
careful because
same
if they offer it
the
now.
the same multiple, like this, like on revenue and all like the crazy things. I'm not gonna do this. We're not at that stage, but it's just it's interesting to take, and sometimes you learn just a lot about the market. And also, I
Mhm.
want to know when is for me, like the next stage for us is like the growth market, like the Series B
Mhm.
market, C market.
Yep.
When is that going to get unstuck? And so I'm interested in taking meetings with people like
Yep.
that. But for everybody else listening, I think you should take some of those meetings and
Oh,
just kind of
definitely.
feel
Yeah,
out
and
that.
I like, at the Series A at Breather was a principal, Steve Schlafman. At the Series C, came into
Yeah,
an associate. I believe in associates championing deals, and the best associates in my mind, by the way, there's a little shout out to, they come from Insight Venture Partners. This is like a known thing, especially if you have an associate from Insight Venture Partners that became something somewhere else,
yeah,
then that is someone who's actually probably has a very good career trajectory, and they get listened to by the partnership because they're the one who does all the work.
right,
So I really definitely believe in having these conversations, and I'll have a conversation with anyone so long as it's respectful.
right.
I had a really weird one the other week where someone called me and I took it, and they were like, "How?" I was like, "How did you hear about us?" And the guy said, "I can't tell you."
Okay.
And so you do
That's
get weird
weird.
ones when you accept any random reach out,
That's true.
but, you know, so long as what YC encourages, and I think it's right, is not to get distracted by fundraising. And
Totally.
so literally treat them like, the sirens in the Odyssey. Ulysses straps himself to the boats,
Yeah,
and he gets all his people to put in earplugs, and then he straps himself to the mast of the boat so that when he hears the siren songs,
right.
that this is from mythology, everyone. This When he hears the siren songs, the sirens won't pull him off the boat and to his own death. That is what the way you should treat investors.
Right,
You can
right,
talk to them, just treat it like it's a mirage in the desert,
right,
you know?
right. I will end on this because I think we're getting up on time here. I think it's been a fun episode, but I totally agree with like when you're actually when you get an inbound, like a true inbound that somebody actually wants to do the deal, the
Mhm.
likelihood that person actually will do the deal is low,
Yep.
but you should then leverage that to
Yes.
go and start a process with
Yes.
at least 4 to 5 people. That's
Mhm.
exactly the way that I got the massive Series
Mhm.
B round done at Shyp. You need to create that FOMO in that other investors' heads that they're going to be missing out on something, and
Mhm.
it has to be also you. There are some people that try to fake it, but like
Mhm.
you can do that, and maybe if you're a pathological liar or
Yeah.
something, you get away with it. But if it's actually like authentic, if somebody actually reached out and no, they really want to do this deal,
Mhm.
and then I start a process with 4 other VCs. I'm like, no, somebody's like actually want to do this. It
Mhm.
comes off so much more authentic, and I think that the likelihood the deal will just come together is much higher versus like
Yeah.
you trying to create something out of nothing, which I know some founders
Mhm.
do. But I completely agree with your strategy.
It's we close with this. I think you're right. It the best way is to have a good company. The challenge is, at my last company, all I had to do, it's like I was on an 18-month treadmill every 18 months.
Right,
Boom. It was like, so every 12 or 15, I had to raise. So it was like I was fundraising based on whatever the company looked like then.
right,
But if you find yourself able to do the ramen thing and you're young and you're listening to this and you're saying, I got to go out and build something, it's just make everything as cheap as you possibly can. Just
oh
grind,
god,
and that way you never are on the treadmill that I was on and burning $2 million a month the way Kevin was,
that's what I was doing. Yeah,
you know?
yeah, you
Instead,
don't.
just be like, I have the power. And that is the best feeling when you have a good company and
You have lots of runway in the bank too. Like investors see that, they'll ask that.
it's
Like
powerful.
it really is. So I think that's a good way to end it. Hopefully everybody enjoyed this 2-person episode, and thanks for listening.
See you next time.
Bye bye.